It's another day. We're back here on Breakfast Central on News Central. It's a Wednesday and the countdown is on to another year. Yes, 2025 is just around the corner and today marks a brand new day, especially looking at the calendar. It's 18th of December 2024. How are you doing? Especially to our viewers who join us every morning on socials, we're saying welcome. Well, the stories are indeed making headlines, so many of them to talk about today, especially looking at the Edo State Governor Monday Okpebolo. And what's been happening there in Edo State is worthy of talking about because it's surely making the headlines. Not just that, we also have very interesting stories. Let's look at one key one, stories that's making the round from midnight. It's got to do with the IGP, the Inspector General of Police, therefore making a very strong statement to all CPs, police officers, telling them right away to stop any form of arrest. Yes, that's what he says. Now, IGP bans arbitrary arrest, phone searching by officers, especially at checkpoints. I do not know if you have seen the number of checkpoints you would find in every single street, especially if you are traveling. You have a lot of checkpoints from one place to the other. We're not saying it's bad, but of course, what the things that are being done at these checkpoints are very, very important. There's also a clear indication from the IGP where he says that in this new directive, banning arbitrary arrest is very key. He mentioned that. Also, detention. Not forgetting to searching of phones of road users by police officers across Nigeria. Now, the warning was contained in the police wireless message with DTO, and of course, the reference is there. The title is Order and Directives. Order and Directives. Arbitrary arrest and detention, dated December 13, 2024, and addressed to all state commands. Nigerians are a bit indifferent with this because it seems like after these statements are being made, you would see it being enforced for just maybe a few weeks or months or thereabouts. I don't even think it gets to months, but maybe a few weeks, and then before you know, everything returns back to status quo. So this is one story that's making the rounds from midnight. IGP bans arbitrary arrests, phone searches at checkpoints as well. These are this is one of the major stories that we are looking at as we open up Breakfast Central this morning, Olive.
All right, yes, indeed. I mean, just to mention that this is also reported by the Nation newspaper, and they've said that it's cited as the fallout from the 2020 NSAS protest, but there are many who would argue that this was born out of the criticism and the backlash that the police has received ever since the conversation with Kemi Badenoch became viral. She criticized the Nigerian police, talked about her experience where her brother was robbed and he robbed of his shoes. And it, of course, triggered the conversation about the strength of the police's integrity. And she was asked the question about if she trusted the British police, and she took jabs at the Nigerian police. This, of course, necessitated an argument on social media. Those who thought she should not have made the reference to the Nigerian police, as well as those who then started threads on how the Nigerian police has been mean to them and the ways in which the Nigerian police has acted in an unruly manner. Many of them cited experiences. I particularly read one who shared her experience. She was married to a British man, and both of them had a son. And she was into a business. The son was helping her. And on one of the days, he took the POS machine to go get money. The police arrested him, threw him in detention, and then she had to go bail her son. For hours, they had no idea
just like that
where the son was. And eventually, when they found out that he was arrested, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for her husband. And they said, we can't raise children in this environment. So they upped and left. So seeing a number of these people recounting the experiences of how the Nigerian police has been unfair to them, acted illegally, especially with regards to stopping and searching. This is one of the reasons why many have said that this memo has been circulated, also because we're inching closer and closer to the end of the year. And as we get to the end of the year, a number of Nigerians in the diaspora, as well as even foreign nationals, will return to the country. And when they do return to the country, what we then start to see is, or we hear of incidences where a number of them are being exploited and extorted of their foreign currency. So these are some of the conversations that we'll be looking at. But yes, let us know what your thoughts are. regarding this. The Nation newspaper has cited it. There's no official memo out there, but of course, some journalists have cited it, and that's why the Nation reports this. But let us know what your thoughts are at News Central TV. My name is Olive Emodi, and you're welcome to this morning's broadcast. And as we count down to the end of the year, we're looking at how people are coping this festive season. It's not the easiest of times in terms of business sales and the revenue that people have been able to generate towards the end of the year. But we're going to be looking at a scorecard from now up until the end of the year. Every day on Breakfast Central, we're going to be bringing up conversations that x-rays the scorecard of politicians, political parties, leaders, a country, as we count down to 2025. So these are some of the conversations that we're having this morning.
Absolutely. Like I did mention earlier on, we'll also take a look at conversations concerning Edo State. We do also note that the governor has given the former governor and his aides an ultimatum to return vehicles that were being used during his time as Edo State governor. We do hear that some of these vehicles have not been returned. And that brings to question one very, very vital question. If you work for the government or you work in the government house, does that mean that everything that is being provided by the government belongs to you? You know, many people have asked these questions. In addition to this particular one, there's another question that says, why is it that every governor, every outgoing governor, when he's leaving, he decides to empty the entire property, taking with him even down to the tissue or toilet paper? It's a lot of conversations. We did see that happen in the case of Governor Matawale and so on and so forth, where these things will continue to play a very key role in conversations around governorship. Most importantly, I think also about leadership. It also shows the kind of leaders that we do have. But Okpebolo, isn't he talking tough? In the past few days, I think he's making up for this blunder, or the blunder that got a lot of persons, in short, got Nigerians talking. Many have said, fine, he could be engaged, or he could actually have a blunder, or make a blunder. But guess what? He's going to be a working governor, and we've seen him move ahead in doing that. He's put positions in place. He's done a lot of things. We saw him engaged by getting power generators for the EBS and so on and so forth. And now he's saying, listen, we're going to talk to the members of the Assembly, the State House of Assembly, where 18 members have been suspended. That conversation is what we're also going to have, but it's really, really thick, a conversation that's ongoing there on the social media space, and we look forward to explore that in the course of Breakfast Central. But don't forget, you can be part of the show by calling in during the 8 o'clock hour, and you can follow us on all socials as well. Feel free to tweet us. Let's get your reactions on some of these major stories that we're bringing your way this morning. It's Wednesday, like I rightly said, and it's the 18th day in the month of December. Let's take a quick look at our top stories on a Wednesday morning right before we bring to you the breakfast headlines.
Edo Assembly suspends all local government chairmen and vices over misconduct. We're looking at whether or not they have the power to have done that. Nigerians paid 2.2 trillion naira as ransom in 12 months, according to an MBS report. And federal government electricity subsidy to hit 199.64 billion naira in December, according to NERC. Traders bemoan low patronage and inflation ahead of festivities. We review the newspaper front pages as is our practice here. All these and more on Breakfast Central. But now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
Thanks for staying with us here. Let's go straight to breakfast headlines and see what the news stories are indeed saying. Let's start off with this one. The Senate has advanced a bill to ban the use of foreign currencies for payments in Nigeria. Sponsored by Senator N2.23, the bill proposes amending the Central Bank Act of 2007 to ensure all transactions, including salaries, are conducted in Naira. Senator Nwoko says reliance on foreign currencies like the dollar and pound undermines the Naira's value and worsens economic challenges. He described the practice as a colonial relic that threatens Nigeria's economic independence. Let's move on now and tell you that the House of Representatives has demanded the immediate release of the president of Miyetti Allah, Kautal Hor Bello Badejo, from alleged unlawful detention by the Nigerian army. Lawmakers have summoned the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, and the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, to appear before key House committees on Thursday, December 20th, to address the matter. Honorable Mansour Soro, who sponsored the motion, revealed that Badejo was arrested on December 9th in Nasarawa State without prior notice or court authorization. The House condemned the detention as a violation of constitutional rights and directed the military to apologize to Badejo. Let's now go to Delta State. Since Olufemi Abaniwanda assumed office as the 22nd Commissioner of Police in Delta State 8 months ago, the State Police Command says it has achieved significant successes in combating crime and criminality. The Delta State Police Chief briefed newsmen at the presentation of his scorecard while parading suspects at the State House Command headquarters in Asaba, Delta State capital, South Nigeria. The CP, who gave the breakdown of his success stories, took advantage of the event to reassure residents of the state of crime-free Yuletide season. A lecturer with the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, UNIZIK, has been murdered in an attack by a yet-to-be-identified gunman. On Tuesday, Emmanuel Ojukwu, the UNIZIK spokesperson, confirmed the development. The victim has been identified as Fabian Osita Chinedu. Tochukwu Ikenga, the state police PRO, said the UNIZIK staff member was shot on Monday night at Aroma Junction in Oka. Ikenga, who noted that the murderers made off with the victim's car, said an investigation on the matter has already commenced. Let's move on now with another story. The National Institute of Risk and Disaster Management of Mozambique on Tuesday announced that the country has been hit by Cyclone Chido, a natural disaster that has so far claimed at least 34 lives. The cyclone first hit the country on Sunday at the Cabo Delgado province, where 28 people were killed. Another 319 people were reportedly injured by the cyclone, which brought winds of around 260 kilometers, that's about 160 miles an hour, and heavy rainfall of around 250 millimeters, about 10 inches in 24 hours, the center also said. The Ugandan International Crimes Division Court has ordered the Ugandan government to pay reparations to war crimes victims affected by atrocities committed by former Lord's Resistance Army Commander Thomas Koyelo. The judges argue the order is based on both international and domestic law on the grounds that the 50-year-old has no funds. Koyelo was captured in 2009 in the Democratic Republic of Congo and held in detention until the court found him guilty in August of murder, kidnap with intent to murder, pillaging, cruel treatment, torture, rape, and crimes against humanity. And that's how we'll bring to an end breakfast headlines here on News Central on a Wednesday morning. Hoping that you indeed will join us again at 9 a.m. for another news broadcast. In the meantime, let's go straight into Breakfast Central this morning on a Wednesday. I'm Joe Hansen. Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. Let's go straight to our next story. Well, Christmas season is a period of celebration and merrymaking. As such, for traders and transporters, it is usually a period of boom for their businesses when they record the most sales within a single month of the year. This year, however, it appears Nigeria's economic downturn is taking its toll on the season sales, as traders are recording low patronage amidst the escalating prices of goods. Well, News Central's Chinwe Ogele, our correspondent, has done a lot, and let's take a look at it in this package.
am standing right here inside Oriuba Market in Omaha when Christmas is only 9 days away.
Traders are in their shops with their wares displayed.
Since I am teacher, I am done, not done.
Things are very costly. Everything, virtually everything in the market is expensive.
Madam, how much is your achara? You see, this achara I'm holding that is used to make Abia State local delicacy known as Ofe achara used to be 100 naira, but right now it is 200 naira.
Because of the higher price of the commodity, people are not coming inside to buy the market.
Although these prices will still soar before Christmas, they can still make some sales within the time.
Maybe from next week now, you see people coming in, buying things.
A comparison of the prices of things in the market indicates that 50 kilogram of rice was sold at 70,000 naira in 2023, but in 2024, it is selling at 120,000 naira. 5 liters of vegetable oil was sold at 8,500 naira, but in 2024, it sells for 18,000 naira. 150 kg bag of onions was 110,000 naira in 2023, but it is now 350,000 naira. A pint of fresh tomatoes was 4,000 naira last year, but in 2024, it is 6,000 naira.
It was not how it was before. Maybe someone would be like, how can I buy 4 pieces of onions at a rate of 1,000 naira?
And I felt pity for people buying it. Even me, I felt pity for myself too, because it's not easy.
The traders say they have no control of the market price because they only sell as they buy.
We don't buy on credit, but when they come to the market, because of lack of cash, they'll keep like begging you. Find out someone will buy something of 20,000 and pay like 3 times.
The people say they are overwhelmed by the development, but will still celebrate Christmas.
We virtually celebrate the birth of Christ.
Transportation fares are yet to increase for travelers.
Due to the high cost of things in the market and the inflation of things around us, how the cost of fuel and nothing. So that's why we have less passengers.
Like before, by this time, you see people trooping from north, south, and every other place, Lagos, Abuja, all this place. But based on transport, now people are no longer coming like that.
By this same time in 2023, traders and customers were complaining about the cost of things, but little did they know that in a year's time, the prices of commodities would have doubled. In Omaha for News Central, I am Chinwe Ugele.
Very interesting conversation there by our correspondent, Chinwe Ugele. And I'm sure you did see the graphical representation of what a bag of rice used to be and what a bag of rice currently is. The question is how many Nigerians would be able to afford a bag of rice. And in most offices where it is the usual tradition towards the end of the year, and not basically because of the Christmas celebration, but of course seen as a way of telling the workers and staff that they've done very well for the company, a bag of rice is usually given to every single staff. Back then, it was known to be a big bag of rice and later reduced to the medium size. And then all we saw later on was the handy size, which is the small size. And this year, we do hear that most companies are no longer given a bag of rice. But of course, they are indeed putting a little sum of money in addition to the salaries that will be paid, especially this week for those who collected last week, and some who will be earning their salaries maybe this Friday or next Friday. Well, what does this indicate? According to that report, you also had a lot of customers complaining that the prices has indeed skyrocketed. This in a way coincides with what the NBS had said, that inflation rate rose to 34.6% compared to what you had as 33.8% in October, and now we have 34.6%. So if you take a look at that comparison, you see that the inflation rate has indeed continued to put Nigerians in a very tight corner and making them wonder, especially as you watch this show this morning, if they would be able to provide the basic necessities that they usually do at the end of every year. Now, there are a few things every single parent or family would be thinking about as they start off their day this morning. One of it would be food. It's very important. Everyone must think about the food first in each home. The next one would definitely be clothing, because during this period, you still have a lot of persons or parents flock the market, looking forward to buy shoes, clothes, and so on. And I can categorically tell you that I myself, I was somewhere in Lagos Island, Balogun Market, and I did see the crowd, regardless of the fact that there's an inflation. I did see the crowd, but it seems like many persons came to window shop and then settle for what their monies can indeed buy. Our correspondent there, Chinwo Gele, who is actually looking at this from the perspective of the market women in terms of food items, you can see that even food items have skyrocketed. This is indeed a call for worry, because this is just 2024 December, and yet we're already struggling and battling with inflation rates going from 33.8 to 34.6% from October up until December. Hopefully, maybe in January, the inflation rate will indeed reduce, but we do not know how possible that is. Don't forget that the inflation rate has also been attributed to high food costs in terms of food inflation. Food in terms of what we consume, the prices going up, and so on and so forth. But then again, it's all about the season. Many have said the Yuletide season would be very, very dramatic, would be very, very tough. It's not that there are no food items in the market. You have a lot of them. But the question is, who is buying? Who's willing to pay? And how much are they willing to settle and pay for it? These are some of the major questions that every single Nigerian is asking. And how are you going to cope? Well, go ahead and tweet us. Let's know what your thoughts are. Let us know what you would be doing, especially looking at the cost of food items. A bag of rice going for 120,000 naira. In some places, we do hear it goes for 130,000 naira. Our very own Breakfast Central correspondent, Amazing Adesanya, would later on bring us a package this week where we would go straight into the market as well and find out what other Nigerians are saying concerning the food prices, not forgetting to other prices and other items as they look forward to celebrate. Maybe not just the Yuletide season. Maybe some persons will put a hold on celebrating December 25th. Maybe they'll move it to celebrating December 31st/1st. It's just a regular norm. It's a norm we see every year. But then again, let's move on to our next story this morning. Let's quickly tell you that the Edo State House of Assembly has suspended, of course, 18 local government council chairmen. What reason did they do that for? And what is the next step? Are we going to hear the PDP speak about this again? We'll have all this conversation in a moment. Let's take a break. Stay with us. This is Breakfast Central. Well, welcome back. Despite the economic hardship, let's go to Edo State now and tell you that the House of Assembly has suspended the chairman and vice chairman of all 18 local government areas for 2 months over alleged gross misconduct and insubordination. Well, that's not just all. The decision, which was adopted during Tuesday's plenary, followed a petition by Governor Monday Okpebolo accusing the council officials of refusing to submit financial records since September 2022. The Assembly's motion, initiated by Honorable Isibo Ede and seconded by Honorable Donald Okogbe, passed with 14 votes in favor, despite opposition from some lawmakers who urged a fair hearing. The Assembly cited Section 20, that's Section 20B, I beg your pardon, of the Local Government Act as the basis for the suspension. However, let's also tell you that the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, ALGON, rejected the directive referencing a state court ruling and a Supreme Court judgment affirming local government autonomy. Similarly, the PDP condemned the suspension, calling it unconstitutional. Well, PDP State Chairman Tony Azegbemi urged the officials to resume duties, arguing the Assembly lacked authority to suspend elected council leaders and warning of federal intervention if the decision persists. Well, joining us now here on Breakfast Central is former Commissioner for Communication and Orientation in Edo State, Andrew Nwanta, who actually is in a meeting now, but has taken time out from that meeting to ensure that he joins us to have this conversation. We thank you for doing that. Very commendable. Thank you so much. Well, let's look at what's really happening in Edo State now.
Good morning.
All right, good morning. 18 local government chairmen suspended. Why have they been suspended? Let's start off from that note so that our viewers can actually get the background of this story.
Thank you. Upon assumption of office, the governor had set up an asset verification committee, and that committee had a mandate of looking at all state-owned assets, including that of local governments. And just to correct a misconception, the issue of financial autonomy is different from the issue of fiscal responsibility or accountability. You know, people keep making reference to a Supreme Court decision that sort of guarantees financial autonomy for local government. What that means is that local government should get their funds directly. That is not to say the control provided for under the Constitution by the states over the affairs of local government remains. Section 7 of the Constitution is very clear that the State House of Assembly has a duty of making a law for the existence, management, and control of local governments. That provision of the law has not been amended. So it was pursuant to that particular law, the Edo State local government law was made. And there was a recent request by the governor that the chairman of the 18 local governments should submit their statements of accounts. A time limit was given, and unfortunately they refused to, but rather they now said they will resort to court to challenge the authority of the state government to ask for those statements. And you can imagine a situation where you have local government chairmen, they are busy using local government funds to do certain things that are not in conformity with specific guidelines and financial regulations. So that the suspension, of course, is backed by law. Section 20 of the local government law is clear that the governor, in consultation of the House of Assembly, can suspend any area local government chairman or vice chairman, as the case may be. Remember that this is not the first time under the regime of Comrade Adams Oshomole, over 5 local government chairmen were suspended. Even the recent administration of Obaseki, in 2019 alone, 4 local government chairmen were suspended for 2 months. So you have a clear history of the provision of Section 20 being followed, and this particular instance is not an exception. And the law requires the governor to set up a panel of inquiry, an administrative panel of inquiry, and by virtue of being the special advisor to the governor on legal matters, I'm a member of that panel of inquiry. We were inaugurated yesterday, and we assure those chairmen and all those in the local government administration that we'll be giving fair hearing. We want to know how internally generated revenue they generate in their respective councils are spent, because these are public funds. I want to know how allocations that come to these local governments have been spent since they came in September last year.
But they look, okay, go on.
Okay, just to double check, I mean, you've talked about how the governor and the state government has a right to ask the local government to submit, you know, to share how they've used funds. There are those who have argued that this is sort of similar to the president asking the state governors to come and give account of how they've spent money. Is that, you know, is that a position that you agree with?
Thank you. I think I must quickly say that as a constitutional lawyer, we tend to treat local governments in a gap they don't really enjoy under the Constitution. The Constitution is clear on the authority of a state government to sort of supervise the activities of local government. And that is why under certain provisions, you have provisions on joint accounts and all of that, that the state superintends. And that's why you have a commissioner responsible for local government and chieftaincy matters. The states, as it were, are regional governments. And it is a global phenomenon. Even in the US, we practice a democratic system that is modeled on that of the United States of America. And the states in that particular climate control what happens at the various local government levels. And that is why, in our own case, Section 20 of the local government law, which was made pursuant to the provisions of Section 7 of the Constitution, gives the state the authority to inquire into the activities of any area local government council chairman or vice. And in that instance, the local government chairman is suspended not to interfere with that inquiry. So it is in line with the provisions of our constitution, and it is in line with the provisions of the Edo State local government law, which remains the extant law as we speak.
Okay, let's tilt a bit to what the PDP members are saying. They're saying that the governor, Senator Monday Okpebholo, lacks the jurisdiction to indeed ask for financial accounts, especially following the Supreme Court's order, or better still, the Supreme Court's judgment, granting autonomy to the local government chairman. So it's like they're saying, why is he asking for such? That, again, it seems to look like a witch hunt, looking at the fact that some members in the State House of Assembly did not agree to that suspension.
When you talk of a witch hunt, the Speaker of the House of Assembly is a PDP lawmaker. And I can tell you that a good number of PDP lawmakers supported that motion. You had 14 against 6. We serve our people. And the majority of our people are the ones that are represented in the House of Assembly. So if 14 constituencies have the position, I think that is a majority. And you know, the beauty of the democratic system is that the minority will have their say.
Okay.
And the majority will have their way. And that's what exactly played out. And just also correct that erroneous impression, the Supreme Court decision does not abrogate the powers of state governors or the state government to supervise the activities of local government councils. And besides, the constitutional provision remains sacrosanct. The Supreme Court does not have the authority to amend the Constitution, but theirs is to give life to it by interpreting specific provisions. And for the provision body, and they have a particular period. If, for instance, you were to suspend or dissolve that board, there are certain benefits that will follow. And normally the practice has shown that you go to courts to ask the court to grant you those privileges and perquisites of office. So for those whose boards have been dissolved, they know what to do. But this is a new administration. The governor deserves to have his own appointees come on board. It did not happen today. During the time of Buhari, we saw it. Under the present administration of Tinubu, we saw it. So for anybody that is aggrieved, they have a place they can ventilate their grievance. But as it stands, for some of those commissions, like the Oil and Gas Commission, was resolved. We didn't have a board. Obaseki ran the Oil and Gas Commission for over a year without a board. And as a member of the Edo State Assets Verification Committee, I can tell you that the level of malfeasance, I mean, the last time we saw that was during the time of Abacha, I mean, the ill-fated regime of Abacha. And coming back to the issue of vehicles, the Vehicle Recovery Committee said from their records, 21 vehicles are being kept by the PDP candidate, Aso Egudalo, and they have called on him to return those vehicles. His running mates, 7 vehicles were recovered from his premises. The chief of staff has 7 vehicles. The other day, they recovered 2 from him. I mean, why would people occupy government office? You have that huge number of vehicles, and after your term of office expires, you go with those vehicles. I mean, that for me is criminal. And it is what Nigerians must condemn in the strongest of terms.
Okay, now the PDP, of course, has reacted to this. They've called this unconstitutional. And, you know, the governor is still in the early stages of doing, like Joe said, a clean sweep. One of the criticisms, you know, that have been leveled against him as well was the budget presentation. I'm sure that you saw the clip that went viral. Initially, they said it was a mistake, and then later it was doctored. And his aide, one of his aides, had spoken and said anyone who doesn't like it can go to hell. I want to believe those. Joe, correct me if those weren't the exact words that he said.
Absolutely.
But you know, share your thoughts on that. You know, the clip that went viral, the issues that arose as a result of that, and your thoughts about the 2025 budget of the 605 billion budget.
And I can tell you for free that there's nobody on earth that has not made one mistake in figures or the other. He read that his speech very well. And it's a former American president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, that said, and I quote, "An error does not become a mistake unless we refuse to correct it." Yes, he had a slip and he corrected himself. And it is only when he failed to correct himself, that is when it should have been a mistake. And as such, we should not be so conscious about the form. We should be concerned about the substance. This is a man that has devoted so much resources to capital projects, 162 billion. If you compare that with the 62 billion of the 2024 budget, you will know that Edo is in for something very big. It started off by flagging off the first ever flyover at Rampant Park because of a traffic logjam. Look at across the sector, 63 billion to health. The state health insurance scheme will get a huge amount of 1.8 billion so that those people can have access to health. Education, of course, will be getting a lion's share, 48 billion. Of that amount, the Edo State University, that's Ambrosale University, will get its monthly subvention at 500 million and a total of 6 billion in the 2025 budget. Compare that with what Obaseki was giving them, 41 million, and that money was not coming. So the arrears of salaries of these lecturers, over 20 of them, I mean, a good number of them were suspended. The governor reinstated them, and some of them are being owed salaries for over 20 months. This is a governor that assures Edo people that his mantra, a new Edo is riding, is real, and we're already seeing clear evidences of it.
Well, let me also ask, because it seems like, I mean, you've talked about your boss, and we've also seen another boss. I'm talking about the former deputy governor, Philip Shaibu, who seems to have been quiet. It would be recalled that a few weeks ago, Philip Shaibu had led the call to give about 1 million naira to anyone who is able to actually bring about information on looting by the former governor. I'm talking about his former boss. Has there been anyone who's come forward to point or talk about looting by the former administration?
Yeah, thank you. I think he said that just to encourage whistleblowers. And I can tell you for free that all the vehicles recovered from the administration, the body, and they have a particular period. If, for instance, you were to suspend or dissolve that board, there are certain benefits that will follow. And normally the practice has shown that you go to courts to ask the court to grant you those privileges and perquisites of office. So for those whose boards have been dissolved, they know what to do. But this is a new administration. The governor deserves to have his own appointees come on board. It did not happen today. During the time of Buhari, we saw it. Under the present administration of Tinubu, we saw it. So for anybody that is aggrieved, they have a place they can ventilate their grievance. But as it stands, for some of those commissions, like the Oil and Gas Commission, was resolved. We didn't have a board. Obaseki ran the Oil and Gas Commission for over a year without a board. And as a member of the Edo State Assets Verification Committee, I can tell you that the level of malfeasance, I mean, the last time we saw that was during the time of Abacha, I mean, the ill-fated regime of Abacha. And coming back to the issue of vehicles, the Vehicle Recovery Committee said from their records, 21 vehicles are being kept by the PDP candidate, Aso Egudalo, and they have called on him to return those vehicles. His running mates, 7 vehicles were recovered from his premises, Osarodiongi. The chief of staff has 7 vehicles. The other day, they recovered 2 from him. I mean, why would people occupy government office? You have that huge number of vehicles, and after your term of office expires, you go with those vehicles. I mean, that for me is criminal. And it is what Nigerians must condemn in the strongest of terms.
Okay. Now, the PDP, of course, has reacted to this. They've called this unconstitutional. And, you know, the governor is still in the early stages of doing, like Joe said, a clean sweep. One of the criticisms, you know, that have been leveled against him as well was the budget presentation. I'm sure that you saw the clip that went viral. Initially, they said it was a mistake, and then later it was doctored. And his aide, one of his aides, had spoken and said anyone who doesn't like it can go to hell. I want to believe those. Joe, correct me if those weren't the exact words that he said.
Absolutely.
But you know, share your thoughts on that. You know, the clip that went viral, the issues that arose as a result of that, and your thoughts about the 2025 budget of the 605 billion budget.
And I can tell you for free that there's nobody on earth that has not made one mistake in figures or the other. He read that his speech very well. And it's a former American president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, that said, and I quote, "An error does not become a mistake unless we refuse to correct it." Yes, he had a slip and he corrected himself. And it is only when he failed to correct himself, that is when it should have been a mistake. And as such, we should not be so conscious about the form. We should be concerned about the substance. This is a man that has devoted so much resources to capital projects, 162 billion. If you compare that with the 62 billion of the 2024 budget, you will know that Edo is in for something very big. It started off by flagging off the first ever flyover at Rampant Park because of a traffic logjam. Look at across the sector, 63 billion to health. The state health insurance scheme will get a huge amount of 1.8 billion so that those people can have access to health. Education, of course, will be getting a lion's share, 48 billion. Of that amount, the Edo State University, that's Ambrosale University, will get its monthly subvention at 500 million and a total of 6 billion in the 2025 budget. Compare that with what Obaseki was giving them, 41 million, and that money was not coming. So the arrears of salaries of these lecturers, over 20 of them, I mean, a good number of them were suspended. The governor reinstated them, and some of them are being owed salaries for over 20 months. This is a governor that assures Edo people that his mantra, a new Edo is riding, is real, and we're already seeing clear evidences of it.
Well, let me also ask, because it seems like, I mean, you've talked about your boss, and we've also seen another boss. I'm talking about the former deputy governor, Philip Shaibu, who seems to have been quiet. It would be recalled that a few weeks ago, Philip Shaibu had led the call to give about 1 million naira to anyone who is able to actually bring about information on looting by the former governor. I'm talking about his former boss. Has there been anyone who's come forward to point or talk about looting by the former administration?
Yeah, thank you. I think he said that just to encourage whistleblowers. And I can tell you for free that all the vehicles recovered from the administration, the immediate past administration, were the efforts made by people who knew where these vehicles were, because we even had situations.
Okay. Well, we seem to have a little network glitch there. Well, Andrew Nwata, we look forward to hearing from you, because we recall the former deputy governor had said he was willing to give 1 million naira to anyone who had any information about any form of theft, stealing, you know, and so on by his former boss's administration. But Towa is here with us. He's also a lawyer. He joins us all the way from the UK. Let me ask very quickly. I'm sure you've been following closely and you've listened to an entire conversation we've had with a member of the team there in Edo State. Can you shed more light on what's really happening from a lawyer's perspective, where you have 18 local council chairmen, crime blue murder because they were not given opportunity to defend themselves, and they're not willing to even open their files to show what monies or accounts have been used for?
And the question you should, I think what should be of concern is whether the request made by the Edo State governor is constitutional. Remember, we practice federalism, and the federalism to be practiced is one, we have the federal, we have the state, we have the local government. Though the Constitution, by virtue of Section 7 of the Constitution, give independence, political structure to the local government, when it explicitly stated that no local government council cannot be run by unelected executive. So that is an independent arm of government, independent structure of government. So for the governor to have called for the books, accounts of the local government in Edo State is an aberration of the Constitution, an overstep of his constitutional powers, and even that of the local government, even that of the State House of Assembly. Let's not forget that the local government has the councillor, which is the legislative arm of the local government, which is headed by councillors from various wards that looks at the activities of the local government and also create a bylaw. Then another thing again we should ask is that is the local government an appointees or appointee of the state governor? The answer is no. They are elected, and their tenures are explicitly stated by law. And as a matter of fact, what they normally do, they take advantage of the silent provision of the Constitution as to the tenure of local government. But let's assume that the State House of Assembly make law as to the period in which the local government chairman ought to stay. They ought not to be sacked except an election is conducted. So this is something that is worrisome to anybody who love democracy. You see, and let's look at it from this perspective. Under this current administration, led by the federal government administration, led by APC, they secured a landslide Supreme Court judgment, which guarantee autonomy, financial autonomy and rest, which the provision of the Constitution was explicitly interpreted by the Supreme Court. Now, the first point of the first accident of that judgment is led by an APC governor. Let's look at it. This is an insult to our Constitution, and this is ridicule of the decision of the Supreme Court.
We seem to have a lot of problem right now, especially. How do you think we can actually enrich our jurisprudence? Because what we're seeing here is a complete, maybe, misinterpretation of what the law should be. That's why when our guest joined initially, we had told him to go ahead and explain what really happened and also looking at it from the face or the eye of the law. Now, you've come to say that no, it shouldn't be that way because, I mean, these elected local government chairmen are not appointees of the government. But then again, let me allow Olive. I'm sure she has a question.
Yeah, I just want to, follow up, piggyback on what you've said. Our guest, who is still here, I believe, Mr. Andrew, had talked about, he had made reference to Section 7 of the Constitution, talking about the local government and its powers and the powers of state government. And then he did say that the Supreme Court judgment in July that everyone is making reference to only talks about financial autonomy of the local government, but that it doesn't guarantee that the local government is totally independent of the state, as the state should be able to oversee the affairs of the local government. I'm going to allow Mr. Nwanta to speak, but I want you, to please respond to that first. Okay,
first of all, you see, the first casualty of every battle is the truth. And when politics is mixed with law, or when the judiciary whines with politicians, you see the ridicule of interpretation of their judgment. And that is what we are facing now in Nigeria. The first question you ask whoever makes such an assertion, or the assertion that was said, is what is the status of Section 7 of the Constitution? Then two, under which provision of the law does a state governor has the power to dissolve a local government chairman? Do you understand? Well, they can lie under the provision of the law that it is the duty of the State House of Assembly. Do you understand? The duty of the State House of Assembly to make law, that is to make law to govern the state. The state in quotes. It's just like you telling the state, the National House of Assembly to make law to impeach or to dissolve a state governor. I think that is not the spirit or the provision of the law, and that is not what the Constitution says. If you have read the Constitution, you should know that there are sections of the law that the courts or the Attorney General requested the courts to interpret. And Section 7 of it is one of them. And also, autonomy, financial autonomy. Why should a state governor ask a local government chairman or chairman to bring a bank statement? He has no power. It's not even within his rights. The councillors are there. In short, as a matter of fact, if you look at it, whatever activity of a local government is within the confines of the local government. And if there's any issues, what the state governor could do politically is to influence the removal of the local government chairman, not to dissolve and also appoint the local government chairman. It's an aberration of the Constitution and also an affront of the Supreme Court I've also referred to. And I think it should guide me through, because it should guide me through the provision of the law.
All right, Mr. Nwanta is here. I'm sure that he can, respond to that. Let's have him speak.
He can guide us through.
I think my learned friend there is a bit ambitious, and I'll say the reason why I think he's a bit ambitious. He has not studied the Edo State local government law. As lawyers, we don't come on TV to speak on what we have knowledge, what we don't have knowledge of. And the worst thing that will happen to a lawyer is when you exhibit ignorance of the law. Section 7 empowers the State House of Assembly to make laws for the existence, one, control and management of local government councils. That provision of the Constitution has not been amended. And it was pursuant to that particular law in 2000, the Edo State local government law was made. If I ask him there, he has not studied this law. It is that law that empowers a governor in consultation with the House of Assembly, by virtue of the powers they have under Section 7, to suspend an any local government chairman. So for him to refer to councillors, yes, there's also a provision on how the local government councillors can also activate the removal of a chairman. That is different. And he was referring to, there's nothing like National House of Assembly. We have a National Assembly made up of the Senate and the House of Reps. He referred to a landslide judgment of the Supreme Court. It's a landmark decision, and that decision is on financial autonomy. So I appeal to him, he should take his time, study the Edo State local government law before he comes on TV to misinform the public. The governor acted based on the rule of law. What is the rule of law? Section 20 is very clear, that once you have a situation where there's a case of malfeasance or insubordination, the governor has a power in consultation, which he did yesterday with the House of Assembly, to suspend. There are precedents. Obaseki, the immediate past PDP governor, suspended 4 local governments, including the local government chairman of my local government, in line with that same law. So what has changed?
Before Mr. Osaruoja responds, I still want to follow up with you, Mr. Nwanta. Algon has said that there is a High Court ruling that sets aside the local government law that you make reference to in Edo State. Can you please confirm or deny this?
There's no law like, I'm not aware of any court order. If they have, they should bring it, but that remains the law of the state. There's nothing like that. They are just trying to be funny. If they have issues, they should go to court. The governor acted according to the law, and if they have grievances, they should go to court.
All right, let's have Mr. Osaruoja have his right of response as well.
It's okay. First of all, I think I don't want to throw tantrums to personalities on air. But one thing I want to draw the attention of my colleague there is the fact that if you look at this provision of Section 7, subsection 6, paragraph B of the Constitution is referring to, has to do with allocation of public funds, and that allocation has to do with the joint account, the money generated, internally generated from the Edo State coffers. Do you understand how those money will be allocated and shared within the local government? Then let me come back to the elementary of law, and any lawyer and even any politicians hold this at stake, that the supremacy of the Constitution supersedes state law. And when there is a conflict between the provision of the Constitution and a state law, the state law bars to what the provision of the Constitution. So if Edo State law, as he is referring to, gives the governor the power to dissolve, which I believe he should make that law available to the public to read. And I believe that law, even if that law exists, it contravenes the provision, which is Section 1 of the Constitution that talks about the supremacy, and also contravenes Section 7, which categorically stated that the local government will be run by a democratically elected individual within the topography of that local government. Then for that section is trying to say, okay, make law for the, no. Under Section 7 has to do with allocation of public fund. And that allocation of public fund, let me educate him, or let's educate the public, is for the money generated, just like we have the revenue pool of the federation, whereby money is shared between the federal, the state, and the local government. So that provision gives the State House of Assembly not to make law as to the revenue generated, the internal generated revenue of the local government, but internally generated revenue of the state that goes to the pool for distribution to the local government under the provision of the law.
All right.
What are we saying? What are we saying? So and I believe that, I think with what is just expressed now by the aides of the governor or people who are close to the governor, we should pardon the governor of his ignorance, but we should not also pardon or overlook the ignorance of legal officers or lawyers who are attached to the governor. And I think in UK, people of this people who find themselves caught between politics and professionalism will be sanctioned and sometimes possibly lose their license.
Okay. I think that we can, there's obviously a disagreement here on both parties, and maybe the final place or the final body to decide this will be the court. That would be the final place. But let's get your thoughts on what the next steps are. I'll take your response, Osero Roger, and then we'll come to Mr. Nwata as well. So what do you think the next steps are? Toro, you think that there is obviously a wrong done here. You believe that this is an aberration. What should be the next step?
I think the next step should be they should approach the court. And at the same time, I think the regulatory body ought to, for me, the regulatory body in Nigeria, particularly the Nigerian Bar Association, and the Supreme Court should come, and courts should come heavily on individuals who decide to ignore a laid down procedure or who decide to ignore already existing judgment. That is why the court is overclotted. And let me even take us through the memory lane. If you notice, we're not only referring to the Supreme Court judgment, they are pictorial of authority. I'm not lawyers to any of them for me to start citing authority, but if time allows me, I will cite pictorials of authority where the Supreme Court said that the state governor or the state House of Assembly lacks the power to dissolve a local government chairman. But let them approach the court and see, just like it's a time play, after all, by the time they approach the court, by the time adjournments are delayed, 2 years are gone. But let's say something that injustice to one is injustice to the other. PDP did it in River State. Now PDP is getting it in Edo State. But one thing we should know, that the people of Edo State and the people from those local governments who benefit from a laid-down structure will be the suffering cow. All right.
Thank you for your thoughts. And now let's hear from Mr. Nwata. What would you think the next step should be?
Thank you. Just to correct a very erroneous impression, it was not a case of dissolution. When people come on TV to talk, they should always have their facts, particularly when you are a lawyer. It was a case of suspension, not dissolution. And I think our viewers deserve to know what actually transpired. I asked a simple question: has he studied the law? Does he even know that that law exists? The answer is no. He keeps making reference to Section 7 in reference to the provisions on joint accounts. It's Section 162 of the Constitution, not Section 7. And just to say that the inquiry is on, by today, invitation letters will be sent to those affected, and they should come and explain. The state has supervisory control or jurisdiction over local government councils, guaranteed under Section 7 of the Nigerian Constitution, and that remains the law. And after 2 months, the report of the investigative panel of inquiry will be submitted to the House of Assembly for further action. But one thing Nigerians will be assured of is that everybody invited will be given fair hearing. And this will be for the good of Edo people, ultimately. And just to say that in the last election, local government funds were used for policies and not for governance. As we speak, no local government chairman has done a single meaningful project. But it is stomach infrastructures that we hear funds meant for the grassroots administration was used for. And that is what this inquiry will expose.
All right. I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Andrew Nwata, for joining us. And of course, Mr. Toro, hopefully we'll get to have more conversations on this so that we can shed more light. We were supposed to be joined by one of the local government council chairmen. He was supposed to join this conversation to make it 3 guests, but unfortunately we do hear he's not able to connect with us. So when he joins us, and also a PDP stalwart, we'll look at this issue clearly from the bird's eye of these other individuals. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. It's a continued conversation we'd love to have later on. Thanks for your time, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. It's been a very, very deep conversation. We need to know what the law says and so on. I want to thank you, too, for your comments. We can see some of your comments on the social media space concerning these stories. But let's bring you a recap of what we've talked about so far. So good here on the First Hour on Breakfast Central. Edo Assembly suspends all LG chairmen, vices over misconduct. We just looked at this story right now. Nigerians paid 2.2 trillion naira as ransom in 12 months. MBS report. We brought you that story as well in the news. Traders bemoan low patronage inflation ahead of festivities. And this is one story everyone is talking about. Let's tell you what's coming up next in the second hour.
And in the second hour, federal government's electricity subsidy to hit 199.64 billion naira in December. We'll be reviewing the newspaper front pages next, and we'll share with you what's happening later today on News Central.
Yes, my name is Mr. Peter O.
So what's your assessment so far? How are you preparing for Christmas? Have you started buying things?
We are not buying anything because there's no money. The economy is so harsh. We don't know what our government, we read every day they're trying to do this, to do that, but we are not seeing the impacts. People are saying the impact is coming. Well, recently, like yesterday or so, we heard that the Mr. President has given free train rides for all the people traveling to different directions, but railway does not cover the whole nation. So what they would have done is to go to different parts in collaboration with National Union and see how they can reduce the transport fares for people to mostly our people in the easterners who will be going back home, to see how they can cushion the effect of the high cost of transportation so that everything will be very, very okay for them. For rice now, rice is out of it because yesterday rice was about 100 and something thousand. I don't know how poor masses we are going to suffer. In fact, this Christmas, chicken is 25,000 naira. Chicken we used to buy 5, 6, 7,000. It's now 25,000 naira. Our leaders should be able to do something so that this will be, let them give us a white Christmas and not a black one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Joe, you have heard it from these respondents, and that the man seems to be like appealing to the relevant authorities to prevail on the prices of goods and services in the markets. And of course, in the aspect of transportation, everyone's still talking about the cost of fuel, because fuel happens to be something that everyone cannot do without in Nigeria, because you have to move, and if you are not moving with your vehicle, definitely you have to go to the market to go and buy farm produce. And of course, you know that the farm produce must be moved from one location to another with vehicle. So it's really a pathetic story, and I wish that what he's just said right now, that we wish that we hope to celebrate a white Christmas and not a black Christmas.
I mean, it's really very sad to see what the current situation is, and it's not just in Delta State. I think this is a position that is reflected all across the country. If I'm correct, you're standing at Enterbao roundabout. I think that if there's one thing to at least see, is the fact that you don't have to deal with all of this and still deal with traffic as well, which is the part we're suffering terribly here in Lagos. But Austin, thank you so much for bringing us the updates. We'll definitely be in touch and look forward to hearing from us about as soon as we can. Right, there you have it. Let us know how your Christmas is and what the plans are. Has your office started giving you hamper, or should I cry with you? But that's the reality of what it is in 2024.
Let me quickly say this, that if you go on our YouTube page, and while we were talking about the high cost of living on YouTube, we did get a respondent. Someone responded, and Prince Ajibade said on YouTube, my boss already had a meeting with us 2 weeks ago, and he said it point blank that there won't be any rice.
And my response to that is I thank God that News Central management is not like that. Anyway, it's time for us to review the newspaper front pages and see what the front pages are saying. We'll tell you what the papers are saying, but of course we have our analyst in the studio with us.
Absolutely.
Our first paper this morning is on the Nigerian Tribune. The front page says, kidnapped victims paid 2.2 billion naira ransom in 1 year, according to the NBS. Says households experienced 51,887,032 crime incidents. I have to take a pause so that, Okpewolo will not happen to me on set. Edo Assembly suspends 18 local government chairmen over insubordination, misconduct. Governor's Assembly lack power to suspend council chairman, says PDP. Customs seized 3,988 bags of rice along southwest borders. Oil theft. Army deactivates 42 illegal refineries and arrests 29 in Niger Delta. Workers jubilate as Ekiti pays new minimum wage for December salary. Yay! Why Prince Adesuyiha's drop should be next, or Obokun. That's all that we have. Let's move to the next paper.
Next paper it is. Before we bring in our guest, Mr. Shason Kwade is in the house, and he'll be analyzing some of the very interesting stories on the front pages. Let's go straight to our next paper this morning. The Punch It is, and you see that picture there, the incoming president of Ghana, president-elect, talking about Mr. Mahama meeting with Nigeria's president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Nigeria-Ghana eye better relations. The Tinubu hosts president-elect Mahama there. And the federal government opposition clash over Tinubu's economic reforms. This is a conversation we're going to have extensively tomorrow, looking at the 2024 outgoing year and the economic reforms. But then again, PDP, LP, NMPP link president's reforms to worsening hardship. APC government defend policies. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Crashed helicopter flying, NMPC officials violated regulations according to federal government. Truck crushes pedestrian to death in Lagos. Oh my goodness. These are stories anyway. Oyo begins 80,000 naira minimum wage in January, and northern governors deploy vigilantes as Northwest tops 2.2 trillion naira ransom. Kaduna returns Abacha's family property seized by El Rufai, and the last one, Senate proposes foreign currency ban for local transactions. Let's go straight to our guest who joins us in-house. Welcome, Mr. Shesokwade. It's good to see you, by the way. It's December, and I'm certain that you have shared some bag of rice to your... You know, it's not right. Rice now, you know. Rice.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning.
So you're too calm in answering that question. Is it a yes or no? You share the bag of rice.
Or have they shared to you?
Is the rice available? You just read in the dailies that some rice was seized by the custom.
Okay.
So the rice you wanted to share was seized by the custom?
Rice was not available for sharing.
So you did
when you look at, you have to just, for me and my staff, what we did was just to monetize things. I'm sure, you know, you cannot afford to, before now we can do a bag for some certain set of people. But when you look at the cost of things, you won't want to muddle into that. And looking at the cost of operation as a company, we decided to look at specific amount for each cadre, whether it's going to buy a cup, whether it's going to buy a derica, whether it's going to buy a paint, whichever it is, just have something to celebrate. And like you read, we called them before now. I think it was mid-November to have a conversation with them. And sincerely speaking, they all understood the yardstick at which we had to arrive at a particular thing, because business was not as usual. In fact, I remember one of them came and said, "Oga, I imagine how you pay our salary this year." And we said, well, we will continue to do our best, even when there are sacrifices to pay. It's not going to be Christmas as usual, truth be told, for several people, because and I'm sure when somebody knocked at your door to come and visit, like I told someone, I think I need to visit people this time around. I've always been hosting, but I think this is a year I need to visit one or two people. It's not interesting out there, even for business owners. So if you have your organization give you, things to celebrate the Christmas, please, kudos and gather yourself together to do your best in the year 2025. Because it's really not an easy task for management at this point in time.
It really isn't. Anyway, thank you very much for at least making the effort. Let's get into the papers this morning and see what the big stories are saying. I think we should start off with the monies paid as ransom. Kidnapped victims on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Kidnapped victims paid 2.2 billion naira ransom in 1 year, according to NBS, and they say household experienced 51,887,032 crime incidences in a country where it's quote-unquote outlawed, illegal to pay ransom. People have unfortunately had no choice. Look at the amount we've paid to ransom.
Yeah, Olive, maybe we'll start from, I'm sure you know figures from MBS most of the time are the one in court that are actually reported.
Exactly.
There are several ransom paid that are not documented. A lot of people will tell you police don't get involved, we handle this ourselves and look for a way to. So if we are saying officially we have 2.2 billion paid 1 year, you can divide that by 12. You know that is far from what the reality is all about in terms of data gathering. So this that we have with the NBS is huge, but I can tell you that's not the real figures that we've seen across the nation in the year 2024. But be that it may, the federal government will tell you that we are improving on the part of the security and things are not working. But we can tell you it's scary for people to even move on the road. These days, people now have to engage security personnel if they can even afford that for them to go. Traveling that we're talking about now, people wants to make this year, those that can even still afford to travel, because that's the only time they visit their, their grassroots to say one or two things. There are pressure on security agencies for them to provide protection to some of those people, and that on its own is huge. So what we keep saying is that, can we start, diverging power, like we said, into the hands of governor in terms of security? Let's be able to hold the security, the CSOs, which are the governor of each state, accountable for security measures. Enough, we've been saying it repeatedly, enough of everybody waiting for directive from the IGP, from the center, because they will tell you that we need instruction from Abuja to protect and guide people. If you divert into state and regional policing, even to local vigilante, people will be able to track. You know the set of people that are within your environment, and when you see strange thing, you'll be able to act promptly and be able to actually reduce this thing. You see, this is impacting our economy in the sense that people are not afraid. See, I made bold to tell people that years back, over 10, 12 years, I enjoy traveling at night. The atmosphere will be cool. You want to do it. But even to travel by day to some specific area, people will ask you, are you going on suicide mission? That is really not too good for you. You have to now engage security apparatus for you to travel on those areas. Look at the cost implication for business people when you're even going on business appointment for those things, for the one that you need to physically be present there. That means the client will have to bear the cost that you actually be incurring to get those things done. And God help you, you go on such a mission and the business does not click. You can see the impact on your business. So we want a situation where, as part of the resolution, divert power, let's be able to hold our governors accountable for the security measures, to be able to respond swiftly to some of the issues, and with that, we can start seeing development. So if a state is not secure, everybody vacate the state, and let's see who the governor will now govern over when they want to. Everybody is looking for safe haven, where they can always have their life protected here and there.
2 point, anyway, there seems to be a case of reportage in terms of the figures. You do have 2.2 trillion naira in one of the papers. The other one says 2.2 billion. Yeah. So
I think 2.2 trillion would be more like it.
Yes, it's what we have.
If it's trillion, it will be more like. But when you say 2.2 billion, that's just like if you talk. It's really not. When you talk about people paying 50 billion, 50 million, times 100 million. What we've been hearing, we've heard that they've even upped the game to like 1 billion. For them to ask of ransom when it involves expatriate and the like. So when you are now talking of 2.2 billion, you're talking about it should be more of 2.2 trillion.
Yes,
and that's huge if you ask me in our economy. Because that's the same money that is not going into economic development. They are just taking it and keeping it somewhere.
Or using it to buy arms.
Or by using it to buy arms. Not that they are contributing to industries or things that can grow the economy.
It's quite funny how this has continued, and yet many of these monies we do here are being transferred or paid, and yet there's no ability to track. But anyway, let's move on to our next story because of time. Federal government opposition clash over Tinubu's economic reforms. The front page of the Punch newspaper. PDP, LP, NMPP link president's reforms to worsening hardship. We just had our man join us live from Delta State there, and he interviewed a few indigents of the state. We could hear them crying loud how bad the economy really is. Even for all of us here, we can attest to it. Like they say in the local pidgin parlance, it touch everybody. But yet, you still have the ruling party saying, no, the reforms are working.
You see, we keep saying it that it's good to talk about the economic reform by the ruling party, that it's addressing the decadence that they met. But I want to believe that there should be like what I don't want to use subsidy, something like a cushion effect on the part of the citizen, that this reform is actually being worked on. in one of the headlines, we spoke about, you read some state governors who has actually attest to the fact that they will pay minimum wage, saying they will start by January. So look at the gap. This was signed into law like around September, and this is December, and we are still saying we will start implementation of that particular thing in January. So that means the fate of some of these civil servants, let me even address some of those ones now, is saying that the same 30,000 minimum wage that they've been receiving is what they will get even for the end of the year, which is December. So you can imagine the gap. But I remember then when the Senate president came and said, anyone that do not implement this will definitely be prosecuted. They are fast at addressing the private companies. I'm sure a lot of people will be after private companies that are not adhering to this law that has been signed. But how many on the part of the government to fulfill some of these things are areas that we need to actually address to. So it's not about LP, it's not about PDP, it's the reality. But you see, most of the people, and Mr. President will always come out to say, I feel your pain. But the area of address is that you feel the pain, but we are not feeling the succor on the part of the people. I heard the other man complaining, saying, you created reveal and saying free transportation via train. Are all of us going to ride on the train? We've said it. I remember Bodijot coming to say, at least for this period, crash down the freight to about 300 naira because of the impact of the transportation. So it's a function of these reforms, in as much as a lot of us will say it's good, it's fantastic. What is the cushion effect for an average citizen to actually survive? Because when this the reforms start manifesting, I'm sure you'll not be addressing it on dead people. Because when people cannot survive, are entering into depression day by day because they cannot meet certain obligations, a lot of loans are run bad because the organization could not meet up with what is expected of them. They borrow the loan at a specific amount. The inflation rate is not reducing. It's impacting more on businesses. And we say reforms are working, hardship are not there. Let's speak to reality. We understand that the reforms are actually there, but there must be succor. There must be, a cushion effect for the survival of those organizations to be able to cater for the citizen. You can imagine if at the end of this year, your organization, after giving some of us bonuses and the likes, come January and saying we are reducing the staff strength by 50%. What happened to those guys that you are returning back to the labor market? It put pressure on insecurity, because when they don't have anything to do, the next thing is to resort into things, means of livelihood that we all know is really not legal. A lot of people are on the road these days. You are in your car, want to attack you, collect your phone, collect your this thing. Small, what we will call small robbery are happening. And what I keep saying is that, do you know that a lot of pressure are now being put on security? I traveled to Ibadan, Lagos-Ibadan Express yesterday, and come and see at every, few meters, police security men there. Why? Because we are envisaging that there might be attack, and a lot of people are actually traveling. But if the level of security, insecurity has reduced, we will be putting so much pressure on some of these things. And these are areas I think government need to address. Reforms, good, but what are the, succor, what are the reliefs that you're actually giving to people for survival, so that when those reforms start, materializing, you can still have organization that you can task, that you can task to pay some of those things. But if they are not out there, a lot of them are excusing you to go to neighboring country. So will you now be, creating some of those reform reliefs and taxes that you're actually talking about? That's an area that we feel the government need to look into.
Okay, let's talk about this wahala in Edo State. Edo Assembly suspends 18 local government chairmen. Today we had two guests, one for, the other against, while some argue that it is, unconstitutional what the Edo State governor has done. There are those who argue that the state government, through the instruments of the House of Assembly, has the right to ask for accounts from the local government, making reference to the July Supreme Court's judgment and saying that judgment only talks about financial autonomy, but doesn't. There are lots of explanations for and against. I want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, you see, it's not the first time that is happening in Edo. We experience the same thing in Rivers. And it's part of what we keep saying, that when you have precedents, giving so much power in the hands of the governors, quote and unquote. As far as we are concerned, while we're growing up, local government used to be autonomous. They take decision on their own and they don't take directives from the governor. Not until lately when everything, and you know, when I hold your finance, I determine and dictate everything that goes around the things you're doing. So I feel that you suspending them and saying insubordination, I ask, people actually, you know, voted these people in. And it speaks to the volume that this set of people that are local government chairmen were not actually voted for, but are actually, you know, appointments in the ends of some of these governors. And if they are not dancing to their tune, they have to just kick you out and move on. We must do the right thing. Just the same way the federal government will not come and say, you governor, you are not listening to me. I will stiffen you and kick you out overnight. Same, I feel, is applicable for governor to the local government. Local government are responsible for the grassroots. The governor, I don't think Mr. President will wake up tomorrow and say, this opposition party who are not in alliance with some of the things we are doing at the federal level, we are going to suspend you. That will not happen. So I don't expect state governor to come up and infuse their power on local government. You need to come to a common ground, because when this has been done, it is the citizen that will suffer it, because there won't be anything called governance. You only leave it in the hands of very few that consider that as an opportunity for them to even see how they can make available to themselves some of the national case. So I feel the right thing needs to be done. If indeed the local government are the third arm of government, let them operate autonomously and don't let this overbearing power that we're getting from the state governor on the local government, let them cease, and we can have that which is expected of us as a nation.
Senate proposes foreign currency ban for local transactions. It's past its first reading. What they're simply saying here is all the expatriates that come into the country and earn in dollars, there'll be no more. If you come to Nigeria, they convert the dollar, you earn in naira. Things that we buy and purchase in dollar, especially houses, accommodation, rent that they pay in dollars, everything should be streamlined to be paid in naira. Experts have said it's good. What's your take?
My take on it is good, but my problem is implementation, because the same set of people making the law are the same set of people that flout the law. And
maybe they should add in the law that when it's election time, nobody should have a...
Because we all know what happened 2023. Naira was not shared. Yeah. It is more of the foreign exchange that was actually there. It's the right thing for us to do. It will shock you. One of my sisters called me that their landlord called them and said, excuse me, I'm no longer collecting rent in naira. I want it in dollar, and this is the rate I want to collect. And the guy said, I've never cited $1 in my life, sir. How do you say? You go and buy. What I will tell you is that this is the amount I want to collect in dollars. And you go and get the dollar and give to me, because even if at that point, if dollar is 1.7 now, if by next year when your rent will expire, it's going to be 800, I don't mind. If it is going to be, but I know the goalpost will change when the dollar, you know, loses its value. I don't have issues with some of this law, but when it comes to implementation, it's always a problem, because the same set of people that are making the law are the ones flouting the law. They may not be at the face of it, but they are people who work behind the scene to carry out that, a lot of things. If you are able to domesticate all these things and implement it, that we no longer see dollars as, we will see our currency come up the way it should be. Because a lot of things are happening. There is nothing you want to get. The wig that my sister is buying, you will buy it through dollar, education, dollar, health, dollar, everything, dollar. Why must that be? Even the rent you are paying in dollar, because somebody feel. And even the man that is asking that you should pay him in dollar, some of them too have not cited dollar. It's maybe because they have family that say, sir, the next thing to do now is it. And even when they get those dollars, are they actually domesticating it there? They shipped it out there, and you know, into their dorm account, and it's out there, it's out. Not collecting, not having any impact on our economy. It's not about the law, it's about the implementation when those things actually become law, because we have a lot of our laws that should have actually assisted in the growth of our economy. And
the tax reform.
But when it comes to implementation, it becomes a bottle of care that everybody starts. This thing, when it gets to the final reading, you now see different spheres of senators coming against it. Why it will not fair, just like we have with this tax reform bill before the National Assembly.
Okay. Let's still look at the Punch newspaper. Let's see what your thoughts are regarding Nnamdi Kanu's release may not end Southeastern security, says Soludo.
Well, the governor understands the reason why he's actually saying that, but we just feel whether it will not. I think it's just proper for us to follow the law. This man repeatedly, I'm not from the Southeast, we've heard that the court has granted them bail, but as soon as they grant him bail for him to be released, another offense will come up and they will charge him with additional one. Whether it will or it will not, the truth is, let's follow the due process of the law, release the man, and let's see what becomes. Let him have his freedom if indeed we have respect for the rule of law. That's coming again from that aspect. I keep feeling for the people in the Southeast each time I hear that Mondays, that in some part of the nation, we consider as a very, I don't joke with my Mondays, you hardly have access to me because it's a day to plan for the week, how it's going to run, and you are just having a seat at home. If it's not going to impact the level of insecurity, let's give it a try. Let's release him so that people can move freely and do what they like. Freedom, there is nothing as freedom to move out as at the time that is needed and is required. But I just feel that let's adhere to the law. If the court has actually granted him bail, let's obey that and see what becomes of it. Not we just envisage it that will not solve the problem in the Southeast.
Well said. And these are some of the big stories on the front pages that we have completely seen. I do not know if we have access to the Daily Trust newspaper as we wrap up. Just a bit in 30 seconds. It gives us an infographic of what we've talked about earlier on. 614,937 Nigerians killed. 2.2 million abducted in 1 year, according to NBS. And you can see the infographic there. It shows in percentages what has happened to every single Nigerian. I think Nigerians need to take time and look at this report from the NBS. Very key. We might also have to delve into this in the course of the week, especially on Breakfast Central here. But finally, let's take this one. Your take on this. We took, okay. I think I should take this one. Banks restrict multiple account holders to 20,000 naira withdrawal. I was at the bank recently. I saw a man shouting about pulling off his hair and saying, "My own money, give me my money."
Yeah, this issue is what gives so much concern. We know that the BVN has integrated everybody, so there is no issue of you saying multiple accounts. It's still one account by the same set of people. But this we have to say, how are we strengthening the e-channel platform? Because I don't think that impacts on the amount you have to withdraw. So if I need to transfer...
POS operators now, a new law. Only 100,000 naira as at this morning from the CBN.
So you can only do 100,000
naira on POS.
But,
I think it's 1.2 million daily as well on POS.
Yeah, I mean, just this morning, there's a new report this morning from Nairametrics. CBN sets daily cash out limit for POS transactions at 100 naira per customer. The bank is 20,000 naira from the counter. I went to the bank and they told me if you have a company account, you could have 50,000 naira. Individual accounts, 20,000 naira. Now the new one as at this morning, POS operators, 100,000 naira maximum.
So that's what you can take from POS?
From POS.
So, well, for me, I think the area we need to look at is how do we strengthen the e-channel and build the trust and confidence in such a way that when I do a transfer, it will go through. A lot of people are actually patronizing the fintech, banks.
They're very fast.
As against very fast, very reliable, at least to the extent compared to the traditional bank. So this atmosphere, a friend was telling me yesterday that those fintech banks are the big main bank. Because when you go to even to the mall and everywhere, that's what everybody is using. If you don't have it, that means you are not a business. That's the way everybody actually looked at this. And I consider the traditional banks, if they don't up their game, they might see the same fizzling out over time. So how can we strengthen the issue of people making transfer and reducing the failure rate? We know that we know that has actually reduced, but at the same time, we must be able to improve on it so that I don't need to handle cash in any way. If I want to make any transaction as huge as 100, 200,000, it's a matter of you giving me. But a lot of people will tell you that they will debit me and the money won't get to you. And that built up this distrust to say, because it's impacting on your business. You're selling to me, and you expect the money to come in for you to be able to transfer to another person to buy more goods. And all of a sudden, it's leaving my own bank. It's not getting to you for you to get value, to be able to restock. That has already impacted on your business. And tomorrow, you think that I will have confidence to say you do transfer. I want to ask for cash. That's why we're saying that let's build more on the infrastructure so that the trust will be there. When you have the confidence that you can transfer at ease any amount you want to do, the other party won't be resisting that aspect of saying doing transfer or using internet banking, because we've seen a lot of failures. And I think we'll give kudos to the fintech company. Yeah. Let them continue to strengthen that base, because everywhere you go now, it's about them. But being able to carry out that particular thing.
Anyway, because of time, I think one of the updates concerning the fintechs again is the fact that the CBN has placed imposed 50 naira per transfer, especially on their channels. What the fintechs have done is they've pushed this 50 naira to the users.
We understand we understand the government. Each time you see something progressing, the next thing is to deal with the masses. God will help them. The truth is, we are ready to pay for me, I'll pay the 50 naira, because the ease of going to kill.
I think maybe 5 naira, 10 naira would have been
the Shebi is revenue. We are driven by revenue, and it is the masses. Anything that is actually growing in this company, expect the government to wage in and look for way to have a chunk from that particular thing. They understand now that the traditional banking is no longer as effective as it used to be. Everybody is going to the fintech, and they feel it's good money on their own part. What are we getting? So let's start having 50 naira on every transaction. Mind you, it's every transaction. So when you do 1,000, you know, 10,000 naira. So when you do 10,000 at about into 10 places, that means they've had to themselves 500 naira. So accumulate that at the end of it. And we always ask, when this revenue comes, what is the impact that the citizens are getting as social contract? You know, is it coming to FAC? Is it going to come? Or we are increasing the bit at which we are allocating to our individual. So these are areas we should look at ways to ease the burden on the people, not when you see certain things growing. It is then you want to impact either on that particular business or the citizens that are actually patronizing them. It's not the way to go. I would have think that maybe 5 naira would have
I thought 5 naira
for every 10,000. It's
to start up with, then you increase, because bear in mind
because of the fintechs you're talking about this, or for the actual banks?
The fintechs, because the banks. Okay, so for the banks, already making a lot of money from the banks already. If you use mobile banking, there's a new one, 6 naira 40 kobo. Before you even start using the mobile banking, and once you transfer, there's 24 naira 5 kobo that you also have, or 26 naira for some banks. Then there's also 50 naira as well if you use the other. So there are a lot of here and there taxes here and there. Maybe the tax reform bill would also have to address this as we progress.
Let's wait and see. But in as much as they will keep saying that we don't want to bother or burden the masses. I think that's just one side. We are collecting from another side. So imagine somebody who wants to make a transfer of 10 naira, you're saying 15 naira. You consider that it's small, but put 15 naira into, I've heard of somebody that was saying that all he did was just to be having the decimals. You know, these days you go to places, they tell you 0.72 kobo. Do you collect the 72? No. Put those 72, 98, 58 kobo in a day and look at the amount that you amass to yourself as an individual for not to now talk of 50 kobo, no, 50 naira. We are talking of 50 naira, not even 50 kobo. So it's something that we need to critically
if we do a quick calculation, I mean, I do recall a friend who had said, he was a banker, and he said sometimes Nigerians are very oblivious to the fact that they do not make a request of the kobo that they find in their account. So sometimes if a bank charges you, they take like 7 naira 32 kobo. And he said, take away that 32 kobo, just exactly like you said. I mean, he said this like about 7 years ago. 32 kobo times 100 million Nigerians. Then you now know that you see why the banks are indeed, smiling and so on. So
of course, and that's why they will continue to declare so much profit that is not impacting on the economy.
All right. I mean, there's so many stories that I think we've been able to touch on many of them, but I think just we highlight the one of Senate proposing foreign currency ban for local transactions.
I like that.
the Central Bank of Nigeria already, the CBN Act does not approve, if I'm correct. And I know there was a memo. When was this press release put out? Talked about, anyway, the CBN Act, the memo was just highlighting the fact that CBN Act of 2007 states inter alia that the currency notes issued by the bank shall be legal tender in Nigeria for the payment of any amount. And anyone who contravenes this position is guilty of an offense and shall be liable on conviction to a prescribed fine or 6 months imprisonment. So there was already an establishment that outlawed this. So the need for the actual bill is a bit concerning. Like, why do we need to? If the CBN Act already prohibits this and it's still being, done.
It's part of what we keep saying, Olive, now.
Just
there
like
are laws that are
implementation.
domiciled in this country.
But we don't have to do a bill.
If we implement 1/10 of those laws the way it is, each time we wake up to say we need this new law, we need to enact this bill, I ask myself the question, there is something similar to this that we've heard before now.
Yeah.
How much have we gone far on it? As a country, how can we be solely relying on foreign exchange practically on everything you're doing? Look at Kuwait, we have so many currencies that are stronger than dollar. And the only way they have actually empowered it is to make sure that you domesticate everything. Do you know that somebody won't mind to collect $1 than to collect 500 naira? I've seen an individual that they actually gave $1 to, and somebody is offering him to give 10,000, saying, dollar. I say, for Christ's sake, that thing they are giving to you is just, I think it was about 300 naira dead. It was dead. He said it's about 3. I said, no, Modi dollar, and I'm like, it's not your tender, it's not a legal tender here now. We don't use it, it's not our currency. You can just go to the Abokia and exchange it, you might even get it less. I said, no, I want to touch dollar. That's for somebody who is not even high up there. The way we promote this thing, and that's how I would tell everybody, if we adhere to the rules and we implement it the way it should be, my concern is that the people that actually initiate, create the law are the ones that will flout it, and nothing will happen to them. Otherwise, if we have some of them as scapegoat, just like already said, we have it in the CBN Act, then definitely it's not something you need to start promoting.
But we saw what happened in 2023 elections as well, where everyone had made mention of dollar flying up and down, which also
it's everywhere now. Nobody ever denied now.
Battled CBN governor, current former CBN
governor.
Yes, who equally had made statements about the dollar and then the need for the change of naira and so on and so forth.
If you go and ask the amount of foreign exchange in the hands of so many elites that you have high up there, I'm telling you, if they follow through this act to make sure that you reduce those things and say you no longer do anything in foreign exchange, you will see it's just like when there was a cash crunch now, change of currency. I saw 200 naira printed 2003, mint, not mint. People started dishing it out, giving it out freely. Just when you come, somebody give you a pack of 220,000. And say, I want to pay you in cash, I don't want to do transfer. Because these are amount of money that are in the hands of so many. And is it for the masses? Is it somebody that cannot afford to have 10,000 naira that you'll be seeing so much money in his hands? So when you make the law, you ask yourself, who is the law meant for? Is it for the masses or for the elites? They are the same set of people that are actually making the law. How much of it are they addressing on their part to make sure that those things actually work through for them to actually have a better country? If this country must succeed, it's in the hands of our elite and the politician to do the right thing, because there are laws, enacting some of these things. But when it comes to implementation, it's double standard, just like we always have it. I was reading on the social media this morning of a video that went viral of a guy that stole something in Oshun, fowl,
and was sentenced to death.
14 years and sentenced to death.
There was 1 year that was sentenced to death, and then, but the governor of the state has given him a pardon.
Which we heard. If not that they cried out.
And again, I would always keep quoting him. I would never get tired of quoting African China. One man wait if Maggie, they show him face for crime fighters.
Yes, no.
And then rich man wait if money, we know the same.
No, we know those things. Those are the areas that we say, when you talk about equity and justice, do we actually apply that when it comes to, there are sacred cows that you cannot touch, even when they carry out those things. And that's what is actually emboldening a lot of people to say, let's be in that class, because we know we are protected. It's when you're on this side, you become, you know, a scapegoat in the hands of government. And that double standard must actually be addressed.
It's very sad that a country like Nigeria seems to give a peace of mind to those who pilfer or steal in large sum. But if you take little, then you are in trouble. Hence, maybe that's the reason why they say if you must steal, you must steal big. You started from thousands, we now started hearing
now it's
millions, now trillions.
Trillions.
They say no, so it's not stealing. And if you want to eat
you eat big.
You eat heavy
big.
So
The one will not get bone.
You release
so
some.
when you start cutting, because I will ask myself, where are we on the allegation on the former governor of Kogi State?
Yes. But anyway, to all our viewers, these are not just points that we're making. These are facts. If you dare, check online and you'll find out. I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Sheson Kwade, for joining us. It's a pleasure. Thank you for your analysis on some of the major stories on the front pages of the newspapers. We're wrapping up the show this morning, of course, with our guests and with you. Thanking you for watching. Tomorrow is another day. It's Thursday. We're very close to the weekend again. People are wondering how they will get money to spend this holiday. Olive.
Well, we wish you all the best. We're counting down the days to the end of the year. It's Christmas in a few days, and we hope that as much as we can, we all can share, look out for one another. There are people who have it worse than you, and I'm hoping that with the little that you have, you can make it a little easier for someone else. We'll be back again tomorrow. Remember to continue conversations at News Central TV. And before we return tomorrow at 7 a.m., let's share with you what's happening later today on News Central Television. Now and 10 p.m. West African time is tonight. Thank you very much for joining us on Breakfast Central. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. Thank you, Sheson Kwade, for your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you to our audience. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Olive Emodi.